Yeah. Hello and welcome to the content strategy world. Thank you for choosing it over exciting topics like prototyping, like chatbots, and it's great to see so many faces. And we were speaking backstage just how cool it is at a UX conference and to be part of a crowd of 400 UX professionals. I come from the marketing world. I've been with SAP for almost 11 years. In global marketing roles, and what I do is to create a content strategy for the digital presence of SAP, so most prominently SAP.com, our digital property, main digital property, so to say. And I have the pleasure to work with designers, information architects, user researchers, structure experts, taxonomy experts, metadata experts to create an overall experience strategy for the digital experience. And there have been a lot of learnings. I've been working in content for about 15 years, and it's been quite a journey. And speaking of buzzwords, if content has become one. Everybody seems to speak about content marketing and content strategy. So from my experience and from other conferences around the world as well, and from other bigger and smaller companies and startups, I often see content strategy used as a term, and I see that we all still work to a certain extent like decades ago with content. So not much has changed in the way we deal with content, and not much has changed in the way that content is seen in the user experience. So that's why I thought I would bring up an elephant and speak about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is something big, potentially something important, and it's a problem. And nobody wants to talk about it, actually. And I'll spend the next 20 minutes talking about it, and then I would love to hear from you. And I haven't figured it all out by any means, so I'm looking forward to hearing about your experiences and to the exchange after the talk as well. So the elephant in the room is content. And I just did a Google search yesterday evening, and the result was, of course, to be expected, more than 9 billion search results, and I'm pretty sure if I ask any one of you, you would have probably a slightly different definition of content. Well, I have something very simple that I always use and say content is any information in a certain format that ideally provides value for people and organizations. And what content does is more than simply words. So it's looking beyond words and looking about what we would like to convey with content. We have a certain intention, and we want to answer someone's questions, we want to make their lives easier, we want to create a bridge, we want to connect with people and other organizations, and we want to differentiate. We want to create value through content. And the last point is a bit contentious when I share it, is the key value creator in the digital economy. But if you think about it, it's really any experience consists of content. And I've seen that a lot during user research. Design can be really beautiful, and a digital experience can simply look amazing. But if the content is crappy, then the experience is crappy. And I've literally heard many users saying, you know, I'm out of here. Nice pictures, beautiful visualization, but I don't know what you're trying to say. What does that mean? So the role of content in the experience is really important. And I have a quote coming from my world, the world of marketing and go-to-market in general, saying that 9 out of 10, and I would say 10 of all B2B buyers consuming content, and the content has a major impact on purchasing decisions of any kind. And there are different types of research saying that before someone considers a product or a service or buying something, they consume at least 5 pieces of content. So it sounds like content is really crucial in the overall experience. And as many definitions there are of content, there are probably even more definitions of content strategy. I did a content strategy certification 6 years ago, and it was funny because the longest discussions we had during the class was about what is content strategy. So, and there were arguments, and there were people just saying, no, it's that, or it's this and that. And that's why I always bring up a definition that I really like. It's very easy, and it says that content strategy plans for the delivery of usable and useful content. Because the content should be of use to someone, and they should be able to use it as well in a certain form. And content strategy brings together the two sides of the coin: the user needs, the information needs, and the objectives that we all have. Because no organization in this world, and I mean it, no organization creates content for the sake of content. You create it to make a difference. You create it to steer change. You create it with a certain intention. So this is what we use in the methodology that I use in my work as well. And speaking of content and the experience, as much as I like content and I love content, I have to say content can never exist in its own. It's always part of something bigger. And this something bigger is the overall experience. And the overall experience consists of knowing the user insights, translating that into specific UX strategy, of certain intent that you have with the experience. It consists of structure, of course it consists of design, and content is an integral part of it. And the visualization that you see on the left-hand side is of the process that we use. So all of these disciplines work together to shape the experience. And it's always a lot of fun, because when people from different disciplines come together, everyone tends to think, well, my discipline is the most important one. So we always joke that designers say, well, no, design is the first thing that you start with. And user researchers say, well, but if you don't know the user, then you cannot do anything. And I always say, well, if you have no content, then you have no experience. So it's a lot of fun, and it's also a very creative type of work, of going back and forth, and you see the arrows going back and forth and figuring out what kind of design we need for this specific user needs, what kind of content do we need, how do we create it in an overall user experience. And here I'm starting to introduce this concept: content strategy needs to be part of the overall process. So content strategy needs to be at the table from the very beginning. And maybe some of you would recognize this scenario of you have the design ready, you have the complete thing ready, and someone comes to you and says, well, we need a little bit of web copy. We need to fill it with some content. And this is exactly what does not work. Really, content needs to be part of the planning process, of the strategic direction, all the way through execution. And only by doing that can we really create an integrated, consistent experience for the user with relevant types of content. And I wanted to share a few things that changed for us since we started using this methodology, and since content strategy was really part of the overall process. And this is not to brag about it, just to show that if you're persistent and if you really stay with this thinking of an integrated user experience approach, it pays off. The results can be great. So we started from users saying, you know, I'm out of here, this is fluff, I hate it, to the point where last year they started saying, wow, this is really helpful. This is exactly the information I need at this point of my journey. And that's probably the best recognition ever. Of course, some other external recognitions, like finalists for awards, and some UX recognitions as well, some benchmarking recognitions with key competitors. So all of this worked for us, and it could work for you. Now the question is, how do we do it? And I thought it would be useful to share a few takeaways, a few things that helped me in my work, a few things that are guiding principles to what I've been doing. And these three things start with the user. We always start with the information needs of the user. And we have a model called Customer Experience Map based on extensive user research done over many years that helps us understand the needs of the user at every step of the journey. So even before they know SAP, and believe me, there are many countries where SAP is not known. So even before they know SAP, or even before they know that they need a piece of software, we know what kind of information they're looking for. Starting from that point, going through, okay, at a certain point they become aware of SAP, at a certain point, ideally, potentially, they start considering a piece of software coming from SAP. They start evaluating different software vendors, different options. And there is a buying decision, a purchasing decision. Then they implement, depending on the type of software. They use the software, they evaluate, etc. And it's a circle. And in this circle, at every step, there are different questions that they ask. And what content strategy is supposed to do and should do in the UX process is to answer these questions. It's very simple. You just answer the questions and provide useful information at every step of the way. And you steer them in the right direction. So what we did based on this customer experience map, knowing the user, we did a complete mapping of content across the complete journey. So what kinds of content, what formats of content users need when they consume information, when they go through this full cycle. And this has been the foundation of what we have been doing, and implementing it is not as trivial, it's not as easy. It sounds very simple, and implementing it is a little bit of a challenge in a big organization. The second thing that really worked, and I talked about it a bit, so I won't go into detail, is to embed content strategy in the overall process. The strategy development starts at the very beginning, when a certain business objective is, or a pain point of users and business objective, when they are defined, when they emerge, then all of us as a team, design, content, structure, metadata, information architecture, we come together and we design the experience. And content strategy creates an overarching content strategy, makes it also specific, documents it, and also steers execution, because it's one thing to document and create a strategy. It can only come to life if it's executed. And the last point that's, I think, underestimated in many cases, it's the documentation and the communication. So you can create the best, I can create the best PowerPoint, and I can create, or you can create the best piece of strategic paper, and it's worth nothing if nobody ever uses it. It's the same with content strategy. You can have the perfect plan, and if it's never executed, then it just remains a plan and nothing else. So documentation and also communication and collaboration. So yeah, I've had the opportunity to work with many business units across SAP, and you know, people don't necessarily understand what user experience is. So it requires a lot of patience and persistence to say, well, you know, it's important. It's important to create content that's needed by the user. And all of this requires a lot of convincing, it requires a lot of conversations, and it requires true collaboration. So that has really made a difference to us and to our work. And these are the 3 points that were key. I would say, and I mentioned persistence, I think one of the key characteristics of any content strategist is persistence. If you want to make a difference, if you want to do something, if you want, going back to what Christian said at the beginning, if you want to create something new, if you are a doer, you need to be persistent and you need to truly believe in what you do in the user experience. And I want to end with a quote saying that high quality web content is really what differentiates people and organizations. And if you think about it, it's really the only thing in the overall experience that truly helps convey a message. It answers a question. It can truly make a difference to people's lives. And this quote comes from a book called Content Strategy by Christina Halvorson. And if you're interested in content, and if there is one book that you would read, let it be this one. It's really very pragmatic, it's very practical, and it creates an overall view of content, not only the front-end content, but also the back-end. What about metadata? How do we ensure that the content is findable? How do we ensure that it's easy to consume? So a lot of these things, and it will help you see content from a different perspective as well. And I'm ending it here, and I'm hoping for some questions or comments, and I'll be here throughout the day as well. So if you want to talk about content or anything else related to user experience or to SAP, I'm here. Thank you very much.